November 19th, 2016, Saturday of the 33rd week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the book of Revelation. I, John, heard a voice from heaven speak to me. Here are my two witnesses. These are the two olive trees and the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of the earth. If anyone wants to harm them, fire comes out of their mouths and devours their enemies. In this way, anyone wanting to harm them is sure to be slain. They have the power to close up the sky, so that no rain can fall during the time of their prophesying. They also have power to turn water into blood, and to afflict the earth with any plague as often as they wish. When they have finished their testimony, the beast that comes up from the abyss will wage war against them and conquer them and kill them. Their corpses will lie in the main street of the great city, which has the symbolic names Sodom and Egypt, where indeed their Lord was crucified. Those from every people, tribe, tongue, and nation will gaze on their corpses for 3.5 days, and they will not allow their corpses to be buried. The inhabitants of the earth will gloat over them, and be glad and exchange gifts, because these two prophets tormented the inhabitants of the earth. But after the 3.5 days, a breath of life from God entered them. When they stood on their feet, great fear fell on those who saw them. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven say to them, "Come up here." So they went up to heaven in a cloud as their enemies looked on. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is,
Blessed be the Lord, my rock. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for battle, my fingers for war. Blessed be the Lord, my rock. My mercy and my fortress, my stronghold, my deliverer, my shield in whom I trust, who subdues my people under me. Blessed be the Lord, my rock. O God, I will sing a new song to you. With a 10-string lyre I will chant your praise. You who give victory to kings and deliver David, your servant, from the evil sword. Blessed be the Lord, my rock.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Some Sadducees, those who deny that there is a resurrection, came forward and put this question to Jesus, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us, if someone's brother dies leaving a wife but no child, his brother must take the wife and raise up descendants for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married a woman but died childless. Then the second and the third married her, and likewise all the 7 died childless. Finally the woman also died. Now at the resurrection, whose wife will that woman be? For all 7 had married her." Jesus said to them, "Children of this age marry and remarry, but those who are deemed worthy to attain to the coming age and to the resurrection of the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. They can no longer die, for they are like angels, and they are the children of God, because they are the ones who will rise. That the dead will rise even Moses made known in the passage about the bush, when he called Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And he is not God of the dead, but of the living, and to him all are alive." Some of the scribes said in reply, "Teacher, you have answered well," and they no longer dared to ask him anything. The Gospel of the Lord.
November 19th, Saturday of the 33rd week in Ordinary Time. The first reading comes from the book of Revelation, chapter 11, verses 4 to 12. This reading speaks about 2 witnesses who are 2 olive trees and 2 lampstands. Who are these 2 witnesses? Well, originally in the Old Testament, when the symbol was first used, they were Moses and Elijah. Moses representing the law, Elijah the prophets. And remember, those are the two representatives who appear when Jesus is transfigured. Here, though, they probably stand for the church. The church is described as a lampstand. Earlier in the book, we'd hear about 7 lampstands standing for the 7 churches. Here we hear about 2 lampstands. In fact, in chapters 2 and 3, the letters to the 7 churches, there are only 2 of them which are fully positive. So maybe those 2 are representing the whole church. They are lampstands. They burn olive oil, giving light to the world, but they're also olive trees. What do you burn in the lampstands? Olive oil. And that oil stands for the gift of the Holy Spirit. So they have a never-ending gift of the Holy Spirit. They give witness, and because of that they're slain. As the master, so the servant. And people, in fact, share gifts celebrating the fact that they were slain. That reminds us of the book of Esther, where when the enemy of the Jews is slain, people share gifts. And that's still done today on the Feast of Purim, which commemorates that salvation of the Jews. Where are they killed? They're killed in Sodom. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah? They're killed in Egypt. But they're also killed in the great city. The great city at this point is Rome, where Jesus was crucified, which is Jerusalem. The message, anyone who gives witness to the truth, anyone who gives witness to the church, will be killed, no matter where it is. This book is purposely written in a very ambiguous way, so it can apply to almost any situation of persecution. How long do they lie dead? For 3.5 days. This is to remind us of the 3 days that Jesus was in the tomb, but they use the phrase 3.5 because that was the time of tribulation, 3.5, a time and times and half a time. And therefore, like Jesus, they will be raised from the dead and caught up into the heavens, that they might be killed, but they'll never be harmed. The Gospel is from Luke 20, 27 to 40. Jesus is questioned by the Sadducees. And remember, the Sadducees don't believe in the resurrection of the dead. They have a rather traditional, rather conservative approach to the faith. And since the resurrection of the dead is not mentioned in the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, they don't believe in it. And so they challenge Jesus on those grounds. They talk about a man who had a wife and he died without having children. Now the Levirate marriage, a custom in Israel, says that woman has to marry the next of kin so that that second man will have a child who will be named after the deceased brother or cousin. In this case, brother. There are 7 brothers. All 7 marry this woman and none of them have children. So the question is, who does she belong to in the resurrection of the dead? Notice, who does she belong to? And Jesus' response, it's not like that in heaven. We don't belong to anyone. We're like angels. Now, angels doesn't mean that we don't have bodies. Remember, we'll have a resurrected body. But angels means that our love is not limited. It's not exclusive. We can love everybody with the same kind of love. And besides that, Jesus gives the example of a scriptural interpretation, that Moses hears that God is the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now, by the time that Moses hears that, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are already dead. And Jesus says, well, God's the God of the living, not the God of the dead. Therefore, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob must still be living in some way. So, Jesus, using a rabbinic interpretation, this would be called a midrash. It's a rabbinic technique that the rabbis used, is able to confound the rabbis and the Sadducees, able to show them that according to their own interpretation, they should realize that there's a resurrection of the dead. And may God bless us.